Alright, welcome back to German with John Berlin. Heute setzen wir fort mit Konjunktiv 2, Konjunktiv 2. Today we continue with Konjunktiv 2. Und bisher haben wir doch gelernt, wie man mit Konjunktiv 2 einige Sätze baut, wie zum Beispiel Bedingungen und Folgen, Consequences and Conditions and Consequences, Unreal Conditions and Consequences, oder Wünsche und Bedauern, Wishes and Regrets, oder irrealer Vergleich, Unreal Comparisons. We did all this. In the present, we use the verb würden. In the past, we use a helping verb hätten oder wären to make a perfect sentence. Yes, to say anything in the past, in Konjunktiv 2, you always use the perfect tense. It automatically means speaking it in the past. Yes, so let's say if I would have more money, I would travel the world. So this is like in the present, a condition and a consequence. So I'll begin with the helping verb würden to make a condition. In Konjunktiv 2, you could make a condition just like you're making a question, beginning with the verb, but it's like a condition, okay, in Konjunktiv 2. So you could say, würde ich mehr Geld haben, würde ich die Welt reisen. If I would have more money, I would travel the whole world. Yes, you could also say it with the help of a conjunction like when, which means if. Wenn ich mehr Geld haben würde, würde ich die Welt reisen. If I would have more money, I would travel the world. So it depends on you. You could use when, or you could directly begin with the verb. In both cases, it'll be a condition. Moving forward, you could also make like a wish or a regret. A wish is made in the present. So how is a wish made? It's just like a condition, but you add words like only or just to make it sound like a wish. For example, earlier I said, if I would have more money, and then I went on to say I would travel the world because it was a condition. But if I say, if I only would have more money, now it's a wish in itself. That means, würde ich nur mehr Geld haben. If only I would have more money. Yes, perfect. You could also make the same sentence into a regret, bedauern, if you say it in the past. How do you say it in the past? With the help of a perfect sentence. Perfect sentences are built with hätten or wären. So here we'll be using hätten, let's say. Hätte ich nur mehr Geld gehabt, if only I would have had more money. You could also say it with the help of wenn ich nur mehr Geld gehabt hätte. Yes, if only I would have had more money. Genau. Also, we could make, for example, unreal conditions, unreal comparisons, like they behave as if they are the winners already. Sie benehmen, als ob sie schon die Gewinner sein würden. Yes, they're behaving as if they have already become the winners. So it's again with würden in the present, yes. And als ob is a Nebensatz. Als ob sie schon die Gewinner sein würden. Perfect. Okay, Gewinner sein würden. Perfect. So moving forward, we have a new structure to practice. Now, yes, we also did one more thing. If you recall, we did the modal verbs in which we used the structures like would be able to, would have to, would be able to, would be allowed to, would want to, or would like to. We did all these modal verbs to make Konjunktiv 2, like if I would be able to run faster. That's just a wish. Yes, so it'll be könnte ich nur schneller rennen. If only I would be able to run faster, könnte ich nur schneller rennen. Yes, or if I would not have to earn money. Yes, this is like müssten, so you could say müsste ich nur nicht Geld verdienen. Yes, if I would not have to earn money. So today we'll be making the same modal verb sentences with the perfect tense. That means instead of saying would be able to, or would have to, or would be allowed to, or would like to, or would want to, we will just add a perfect tense. That means we'll say would have been able to, would have had to, would have been allowed to, would have wanted to, or would or would have liked to. Yes. So that's the perfect sentence. That means when we are trying to make a sentence with modal verb in the past, we use perfect tense. So to get to the perfect tense with modal verb, we need to go back and remember our perfect class, which we did in A1. Yes. So basically, when you use modal verb with perfect, you have basically two verbs in the ending. For example, let's find out. First, let's just simply write a perfect sentence. I have come to Berlin yesterday. Ich bin gestern nach Berlin gekommen. Why did we use bin? Because the verb is to come, kommen. It's a verb with movement, so the helping verb becomes sein. So we said, Ich bin gestern nach Berlin gekommen. Now I could write the sentence a little, change it and add a modal verb. I have had to come to Berlin yesterday, like it was a must that I have come to Berlin. So it is a must that I have come to Berlin. So here we'll need to add the verb müssen. Now, when we add a verb like modal verb to a perfect sentence, we can't really say Ich bin gestern nach Berlin gekommen gemüsst. That will be wrong. We can't write two perfect verbs together. If you recall, if there are two verbs in a perfect sentence, in the end, we write them both in infinitive. That means we will say Ich habe gestern nach Berlin kommen müssen. And the verb, helping verb changed from bin to haben. Why? Because if we are making a sentence with modal verb in perfect, the helping verb is always haben. Doesn't matter if there is movement or no movement. Yes, so in other words, you just write haben and then you write the main verb and the modal verb in the end in infinitive. So with the same concept, from this concept, we could build a conjunctive zwei. All we need to do is change haben to hätten. Yes, so this is the conjunctive zwei, hätten. That means if only I could have gone to Berlin, that could be written like hätte ich nur nach Berlin gehen können. Or if you want to make this sentence, the same one, if, let's say, if I would have had to come to Berlin, if only I would have had to come to Berlin yesterday, hätte ich nur gestern nach Berlin kommen müssen. Yes, so basically we just change the verb haben to hätten and we have our conjunctive zwei in perfect with modal verb. All right, so let's have a look at the sentence. If only I would have been able to marry her, we would write, it'll begin with hätte ich nur sie heiraten können. Why können? Because to would have been able to is können. Yes, perfect. If only I would have been able to run faster, hätte ich nur schneller rennen können. Again, would have been able to would be genau, hätten rennen können. Very good, fantastic. Yes, if only I would not have had to earn. Now, would not have had. Would have is like müssen. Would have had would be imperfect. So we'll write hätte ich nicht, hätte ich nur nicht verdienen müssen. Yes, it's like a wish. Perfect. Okay, they behaved as if they would have been allowed to travel. So we'll say they behaved. That's sie benehmen. The verb is benehmen. Third person plural, sie benehmen. Sie benehmen as if, als ob. Then it will be a Nebensatz. Als ob they've been allowed to travel. Als ob sie reisen dürfen hätten. How did we write reisen dürfen hätten? Okay, let me just write this part in a normal way, in a Hauptsatz. Let me just write if they would have been allowed to travel, and it'll just be like hätten sie reisen dürfen. Yes, hätten Sie reisen dürfen. This is like a normal sentence here. But when we are making a Nebensatz, like here, the verb goes in the end. Hätten goes in the end, so it becomes als ob Sie reisen dürfen hätten. That's how you get the sentence above. It's a Nebensatz, okay? Perfect. Okay, even if the pandemic ended, we would not have been allowed to take off the mask. So this is like, again, in the past, we're talking about a condition in the past and making a consequence. So first one is a real sentence. We'll just write auch wenn die Pandemie endete. It's written in the past, endete. Yes. We would not have been allowed to take off the masks. It would be, we'll begin with hätten wir die Maske nicht abnehmen. Abnehmen is to take off. Dürfen, to be allowed. Yes, perfect. So this is a real condition and an unreal consequence. Okay. If the pandemic ended, they would have wanted that we wore masks. So if the pandemic ended, this is all in the past. When the pandemic ended, yes, they would have wanted. So it's again in the past, written in perfect. So we will say they would have wanted. So we write here. They would have wanted, we could write it like hätte. We could write hätte sie. We could say, what could be said here? Hätte sie. They would have wanted. Very good. It could be written like sie. Hätten sie. Wollen, or we could make a little adjustment here. Moment. Genau. So basically, we'll be just writing hätten sie gewollt. Yes, this is like a perfect sentence, not with additional modal verb. It's just like we used in context. What they wanted, we'll explain in the next part of the sentence. Dass wir die Masken that we wore the mask, or we could have read that we had worn the masks. We had worn the masks. Dass wir die Masken getragen hatten. Yes. So perfect. This is a real condition, unreal consequence. Yes. Hätten sie gewollt, dass wir die Masken tragen hatten. Okay, perfect. Even if you were poor, I would have liked to marry you. Let's do it. Even if you were poor, I would have liked to marry you. So this is a real condition and an unreal consequence. So we could write auch wenn du arm bist, or wäre, warst. Yes, if you were, auch wenn du arm warst, I would have liked to marry you. Würde ich, very good. I would have liked to marry you. It'll be hätte ich dich heiraten wollen. Very good. I would have liked to marry you. Or heiraten möchten goes as well. Yes, would have liked. Okay. Hätte ich dich heiraten möchten. Fantastic. Gut gemacht. So these were the conjunctive 2 in perfect with modal verb. Little tricky, little advanced, but nonetheless fun to do. So, danke für das Mitmachen. Ich nehme Verabschied von euch. Bis nächstes Mal treffen wir uns wieder und setzen wir fort mit Conjunctive 2. We'll continue with Conjunctive 2 in the next lesson. Till then, See you, take care. Deutsch macht Spaß.